morning. Thanks for being here. This is our weekly press availability, and it's nice to see you all. On the Senate side, we've been grateful to get to work, and our committees are meeting finally and taking on all the important issues that are, for us, we're focused on all the issues that are important to Montanans, that are kind of the kitchen table issues, and we want to make sure we get to those, like property tax, et cetera. One of the things that's happened here this week and started last week was the Judiciary Committee started meeting on the half-baked bills that came out of the Special Select Committee on Judicial Reform. And we chose not to participate in that because the charter at the outset was how to rein in the judiciary branch that had run amok. And we didn't think that was a legitimate premise to initiate a special select committee, so we chose not to participate. Despite that, they moved forward and came and produced a bunch of draft bills that we're starting to hear now. One of the worst has already been heard, and that's Senate Bill 42. That requires a judge to declare political affiliation when running for office. We know that Montanans don't want more politics in their lives. They don't want to appear before a judge and expect that judge to weigh their case based on their political affiliation. That's not the intent of our courts. The intent of our courts is to be impartial, and we think that this Senate Bill 42 completely flies in the face of that, so we have great concerns about that bill. And there'll be others that continue to stream into Judiciary Committee. They seem to be trying to ram these through pretty quickly. So we're on our toes. We're fighting for Montanans and to make sure that their rights that are in the Constitution are protected by ensuring that we have an impartial judiciary. With that, I will turn it over to Katie.
All right. Good morning. Thanks for being here. As you've seen this past week, we've had a couple of wins. I'm just going to call out real quickly. One of them is the workforce housing tax credit. Made it past the floor on a bipartisan basis, and we're glad to see that. Housing affordability and opportunity are Democratic values, which is why every Dem voted in favor of that bill, and it is moving, and we're glad to see that. On the Democratic side, we're also working hard on people's priorities and what really matters. As we've said time and time again, property tax relief, housing, childcare, affordability. This morning, Democrats' flagship property tax relief bills were heard in House taxation. That's Representative Carlin and Representative Thane. These proposals are going to provide the most relief amongst the proposals floating around right now for working and middle-class Montanans, and we're glad that Democrats had the first major property tax relief bills for Montanans that have come out this entire session. We look forward to negotiating on whatever property tax relief bills will provide the most relief for Montanans. But today we're focusing on healthcare legislation. Democrats believe if you're sick, you should be able to see a doctor, and it's simple as that. We want to remove barriers to care, and we don't believe that getting the health care you need should risk bankruptcy. Staying on your insurance should not involve a long list of convoluted forms, and we are introducing several pieces of legislation to protect health care. One of them is HB 185, which is continuing eligibility Medicaid for ages 0 through 5. We have raised provider rates and tie them to inflation. We have overhauled private insurance barriers, including prior authorization, and a behavioral health trust fund. And I'm excited to have Representative Cafaro here, who is carrying our Medicaid bill. As we know, Medicaid works for working Montanans. It's been a major success. It's been operating for almost a decade at this point, and we have 59 co-sponsors on Rep. Cafaro's bill. And so I'm going to let Rep. Cafaro take it away on HB 230.
Thank you for being here. I am so happy that the press cares so much about this issue. It's really important to the people of Montana that they understand what's happening up here. Our bill will be heard tomorrow in the Old Supreme Court chambers in front of the House Health and Human Services Committee at 2 o'clock. And our bill is the Medicaid bill that we're talking about. The Medicaid bill, the Democrat Medicaid bill lifts the sunset. And I just have one thing to say about that, Montana's successful Medicaid provides the freedom that comes from being healthy. And if you don't understand that statement, then you're lucky. Second, our bill is fair, and it's fair to all parts of Montana, all corners and all places in between, and to the people that live there and the businesses that try to thrive and succeed in those areas, as well as the healthcare industry. And this is how it's fair. Our bill fixes problems. One of the problems has been that the department can't keep up with the redetermination and the eligibility process for people applying for Medicaid. And so what our bill does to fix that is puts into place provisions that eliminates the hoops and red tapes that families are going through in applying for Medicaid, as well as reopens offices of public assistance throughout the state. And then last, our bill looks at what has been happening lately with accountability and transparency with the governor and the current government. We believe that the government should work for the people, and it should be smart and be in the 21st century. So two things. One is an advisory council made up of the public that will provide oversight and have input into the processes that are happening with Medicaid. And then two, as far as the eligibility process goes, like I said, brings the process into the 21st century by utilizing all of the same mechanisms that all kinds of businesses use, like texting, online applications, emails, portal, that type of thing. And so that's what House Bill 230 does. But at the end of the day, we all know that we've been here 10 years now with Medicaid. It's time to stop with these ridiculous, arbitrary sunsets and just continue it. We know it works. We know it works for every corner of the state, like I said, and all parts in between. Creates a healthy workforce so that businesses can not only keep their head above water, but expand. It's good for the healthcare industry, and of course, it's good for the health of the people.
I'd love to share as well. My name's Senator Cora Newman. This is my first session. My day job is working in healthcare. I help run an urban Indian health center in Billings. And one thing I'd like to reiterate about Medicaid and the importance of this is that Medicaid expansion and Medicaid renewal does not just benefit those on Medicaid. It benefits all Montanans. Montana has not lost a single rural hospital. We've seen other states lose multiple rural hospitals in states where they have given up expansion. And every single legislator in this body has constituents who rely on their local rural hospitals. I work in rural health because we've personally in my family had loss due to lack of access to care. We all hear stories from our constituents about driving 5 miles to the closest provider. That if that's your closest provider, that's your closest hospital, and that closes, what's next? So Medicaid is great for those who working Montanans, because the overwhelming majority of those on Medicaid are working. But it's also good for those who are not on Medicaid because it keeps these hospitals open for all Montanans. So I think it's important to reiterate that this is really good for everyone, not just beneficiaries.
We'd like to go to questions, so please chime in if you've got any.
For Minority Leader Flowers, do you have any comment kind of on the current status of the Ellsworth situation? And it sounds like it's currently with fraud, waste, and abuse.
It's currently under review by the Legislative Audit Committee or Legislative Audit Division, and so we're waiting for the outcome of that investigation. And the bottom line for us is this whole process should be guided by facts, not politics. And so we're waiting to see what the facts are and waiting to see what the conclusion of that investigation is from the Legislative Audit Division.
And for yourself or any of the other legislators, do you have any comment on the ruling regarding the junk files case?
Yes, I'll comment,
Oh,
and
no,
I'm
go ahead.
sure
Yeah.
Katie
Got it.
will, I'm sorry, Representative Sullivan will as well. We're in favor of that ruling. We think that an important part of our job as senators or representatives is transparency. It's one of the foundations of our Constitution, and so we support the idea of making those junk files available to the public, to the press, and so we're very pleased by the ruling.
I was just gonna say, I'm pleased with the outcome of the junk file case as well. Our caucus was going to bring a bill about it if we had to. And we had all committed to signing and waiving away our, we wanted the ability to make sure everyone could access our files, and we had already done so. And so this does not impact us negatively, and we think it's a good ruling. Yeah.
Can I jump in on Medicaid? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm curious, sort of, I understand that your bill has this whole host of things that in your eyes would really kind of advance Medicaid accessibility, make the process easier. I'm also aware of the political climate in which, you all as the minority party are operating. I'm just sort of curious, like, what, if anything, you feel is, if you're willing to show your cards a little bit, kind of what are the things that you think of as non-negotiable versus the things that you think of as maybe open to conversation with your colleagues across the aisle or others who might not want to go all the way to where the bill is?
Well, the provisions of our bill are smart. They treat people fairly. They reduce waste. They reduce red tape and hoops they make government work for people. They just are smart. I don't know why anybody would want to eliminate those through negotiations. And it's early in the session too, but no, we're not talking about negotiations. Our bill is a serious bill, and I hope people realize that. We're in it to win it. We're here to represent the people. They need these things. And again, our Office of Public Assistance is 5 blocks from my house. Some people don't, in rural Montana, many people, I don't even know how they would get there. They don't have internet service, on and on it goes. So our bill's smart, and I'm sticking to it.
Representative Cafera, your bill eliminates the community engagement requirements that are in the law now, is that right?
Yes.
I know that the governor said when he was asked about Medicaid that he wanted work requirements in there. Do you think it's realistic to have a chance with the governor saying something like that, to have a chance for a bill like yours to be successful this session?
Well, thanks for that question, and here's the data. Here's what we know. Montanans do not need to be told they have to work. They're already working. The overwhelming majority, like, I don't know, 2/3 or something like that, of people who are covered by Medicaid are working. And of the others, many of them are caregivers. And I've talked about this so many times. In my district, there's a single dad whose child has severe disabilities, and that single dad worked full-time, and he reduced his hours so he could care for his child. Who can't get behind those values? And now he qualifies for Medicaid. But he's a caregiver, and caregiving is work. Those are two important pieces that people need to look about when we talk about some government structure that is built on a false narrative that people aren't working. They are working, they're caring for their loved ones, or many of them are engaged in higher ed or training programs so that they can create upward mobility for their families. That's really important too. People have mental illness. Again, in my district, I have a dad that said thank you for Medicaid expansion. My son, for the first time in his adult life, has held down a job. Why? Because he has access to the medications and treatment he needs for his mental illness. So I think that what we have in our bill and current practice, which is we have access to training and education and all of those types of definitions, I guess, that would come under work requirements that the government's talking about. We already have that in place with the successful HelpLink program. It's voluntary. like I said, people in Montana, I mean, we have a good work ethic here.
If I can chime in on that and underscore what Representative Cafaro said, yeah, 76% of people on Medicaid currently are working in school, caregiving. 96% have some kind of reasonable impediment to work. And we've seen the governor pass, reducing red tape rules and laws. Adding a work requirement just adds red tape. And makes it harder for people who are working sometimes multiple jobs, going to school, caregiving, just adds another impediment to them seeking care. And if they can't seek care and they get sick, then they can't work. So it's actually a bit of a self-defeating goal. So just to underscore what Representative Cafaro said.
Any thoughts at all around how and if the now day-old presidential administration and policies that might be coming down from there impacts either thoughts around applicability of or urgency around this legislation?
Leadership, do you have anything to say about that, or anyone else?
I would say at this point, we're focused on Montana, and there's gonna be a lot of noise coming out of Washington DC for a while with the new administration, and who knows where they're headed. We're just focused on good policy, and we hope to deliver that on Medicaid in Montana.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Mm-mm.
Does anyone online have any questions?
I have one more.
Yeah,
Yeah, go
go
for
for it,
it.
please.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
In terms of what, if anything, y'all are hearing around the kind of the appetite for this Medicaid bill, but also any of the others that you mentioned that y'all are kind of putting forth in order to ease, again, access, utility, et cetera. What are you hearing from colleagues across the aisle? Anything like that?
Are you hearing anything on these other side,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
continuous eligibility for children 0 to 5 is, another good bill that makes sense and allows people to raise their kids and kids to be healthy and not have to be reporting income changes every 10 days. That bill is sponsored by Representative Ed Staffman, and it has bipartisan co-sponsors. So that's encouraging that there's interest of Democrats and Republicans in looking out for really some of the most vulnerable people in our state, children, babies, infants. And then I don't remember the other ones.
the provider rates tying to inflation and the prior authorization. Anything on those?
I don't know anything about the
Okay.
prior authorization,
I
but the provider rate, tying it to inflation bill is mine, and it's in the process of being drafted. There are providers who have a cost of living increase, annual cost of living increase in statute, physicians for one. And so this bill would look at that definition and just model the same language.
I would also say, in terms of just, what we're hearing, that I think that a very large proportion of legislators here understand the massive economic hit that this state would take if we lost Medicaid. And I do think that that's been presented to us by, in many different, independent reports on economic impact. So I do think that message has been understood by many in the building.
Yeah, well, and so Medicaid expansion is good for business because it keeps the workforce healthy. It's good for the industry, the healthcare industry, because they have another payer source. And it's good for other people who are insured because it reduces cost shift. I mean, there's just so many benefits, and it's the really cool thing about Medicaid is it isn't just concentrated in urban areas. There are more people outside of the urban areas that are covered by Medicaid than inside the urban areas. So it treats everyone across the state fairly.
And I think the other shared value that a lot of legislators here have across the aisle is to support small businesses in Montana. And 6 in 10 Montana businesses use Medicaid. So, I mean, to take that away from these businesses that we all say we care so much about would be devastating.
Well, I was here in the beginning. So in 2013, we had a Medicaid expansion bill. Then in 2015, we had a bipartisan Medicaid expansion bill, and Buttrey and I were co-sponsors. And we knew it would be a good thing. We had no idea it would be a great thing for our state, and it is.
House Fish and Wildlife, I believe, is hearing a trio of bills dealing with wolf hunting and the wolf season. Do you guys have any thoughts on those earlier? Kind of, what are you aware of with those?
I haven't been given any info yet, so I don't have any comment. Pat, I'm not sure if you've heard.
You know, I'm on Senate Fish and Game, but those bills have not come to us, and so I'm not aware of what's in there. I think in general, it sounds like from what I've heard, it's going to be more prescriptive about how wolves are managed, and general approach that I've taken, I think a lot of Democrats take, is to let the commission, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Commission, do their job. They have pretty expansive authority when it comes to wildlife management. They should exercise that first. If that fails for some reason, or they choose not to act, then I think there's a role for the legislature. And so if these bills cross that line, I guess I'd be pretty suspect.
Any other questions? Anything online? Any more in the room?
Well, thank you for coming. We're really excited to have these hearings this week. I think that we will show a lot of value with our bill that needs to be discussed, and so we're looking forward to having people hear it and debate the differences between the two. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Susan.